Introduction to Apache CouchDB, a NoSQL document-based database with Upkar Leader.
So hi everyone, my name is Upkar. I'm a developer advocate. I work at IBM, and I've got my information listed on the page here. You can see my email, my Twitter handle, as well as a collection of some of the talks I've given in the past. So if you're interested to chat with me about anything tech-wise or even otherwise, please do reach out. For today, introduction to CouchDB. First, I thought we'll do just a lecture style thing where I tell you everything I know about CouchDB / IBM Cloudant, and that would have been fine. But then I thought, hey, since I'm here, you're here, we'll spend an hour together. We might as well build something. We might as well actually create an account, create a service, see how this works. So even before I move on, can everybody hear me? The chat has been really quiet today. Let's see if somebody can say hi. Somebody can tell me if you can hear me, please. It's always good to interact in the chat. Then I don't feel like I'm just talking to myself. Maybe I'm talking to myself and there's nobody out there. Ooh, Wise there. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much. Yeah, please, let's keep it interactive. MF, thank you. I know one of my colleagues, Pratik, said he would join. Pratik, if you're there, say hi. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, cool. See, this is so much better. I already feel better because people are saying hi back. All right, so 2 things today. If you want to get the most out of this hour, hey, Pratik is there. Hey, Pratik. Always happy to see you. So 2 things today. If you want to get the most out of this webinar, I think it would be better if you follow along. Okay, so I've tried to keep it really simple. What I've done is CouchDB or Cloudant, as you'll see, is very easy to use with curl commands. And so that's what I've done today. But instead of copy pasting a bunch of curl commands, I've created a collection in Postman. And I'll show you what that looks like. So the ask for today in the next 5 minutes or so is sign up for IBM Cloud. Please use this link. Okay, so if you actually go to that link, which I'll do right now, just to make sure it's working, it should take you to a page like this. And this is where you put in your email, password, verify your email. You'll get an email. You need to put something back in here and give personal information. It's just your first name, last name. There's not much there. It will not ask you for a credit card, so it's absolutely free to use. So if you want to go ahead and do that in the next 5 minutes or so, as I'm going through the introduction to CouchDB, that would be great. And the second thing I would like you to do is download some sort of curl thing. So I happen to use Postman, which you can get from this link. So just download that. Another really good one is Insomnia. I've used that in the past as well. So either of the two. If you use Postman, the advantage for today is that I've already created a collection with a bunch of different commands that we need to go through. And you can, so it'll be easy. Pratik is saying IBM Cloud is the best cloud platform for sure, and he is not biased. So yes, thank you, Pratik. I plus one that. All right, so while you're doing that, again, more of the same. Let's talk. We quickly want to talk about something called Call for Code. So Call for Code is it's sort of our annual hackathon for social good or for good. Right, so in this time around, this year, we have this global challenge going on right now. We are sort of close to the deadline, but we're still not there. So I thought I'll put this up if anybody's still interested in submitting. The 2 themes today or this year are climate change and COVID-19, right? And I'm sure what interests you most is what do you get out of it? So if you do end up winning the first prize, it's a $200,000 cash prize. And as you can see, there are runner-up prizes as well. As well as you get a lot of help from IBM, the open source community, to actually build your solution and to implement it where it's needed. So it's a quick plug for our hackathon. Do go to the site and check it out if you're interested. I guess there's still 15 days left to build a solution and put it up for this challenge. And the other thing I want to show you is code patterns. So IBM code patterns are great resource for learning about new technology, IBM technology, open source technology, all sorts of things. So again, I'll I'll make sure I get back into this at the end, but I didn't want to miss out. I didn't want you to miss out on it. So developer.ibm.com/patterns is where you'll see all of the code patterns. Okay, I'll paste that in here as well. Is it kind of meta that Google knows my IBM Cloud and AWS logins and I don't? Ha! Yeah, well, it might be a browser, it might be Google. I don't know, but yes, that is interesting. All right, so code patterns. Since we're talking about databases today, you can actually go in here and filter down to the database level, and you'll see different kinds of code patterns, which essentially it's a solution. It's a solution to a problem, right? So in this case, for example, build and deploy a disaster donations website with end-to-end encryption. If I were to click on that, it'll take me into their sort of landing page. Tells me what's going on. In this case, I can see it's using Python backend, Node.js frontend, cool. It's using Nginx as the the front server that all the traffic goes through. Great. So I get an idea of what the solution is. Then I can click on get the code, and that's a cool part, right? So it'll actually tell you how to deploy this locally. I guess they're building some sort of website in this solution. But anyways, go check out code patterns. Very cool stuff. Again, it's not just a lot of them do pertain to IBM tech, but a lot of them are open source as well. So I'm sure you'll find something helpful or useful there. Okay. So hopefully you're still creating that account. Please let me know if you have any problems creating it. I can help. And Pratik's here too. Pratik can help as well, I'm hoping. Sorry, Pratik, I'm putting you on the spot. Okay, so as I said, CouchDB is open source. It's Apache-based, NoSQL document-based database. And once I show you an example what a database looks like, what a document looks like, all of that will be clear. And IBM Cloudant is then the managed version of CouchDB on IBM Cloud. So for today, like I said, it's actually pretty easy to install CouchDB locally on the Mac, which is what I'm using, or locally in a Docker image that you can play around with it. But it's even easier to use it on IBM Cloud, especially when I don't know how many people here have Docker installed, or what kind of machines you're using. To sort of get around all of that, we'll use IBM Cloud today. So like I said, Apache CouchDB is a JSON document database. And this is what you'll see on the cloud, right? So first of all, what is this NoSQL? It's not SQL, right? That name kind of says it all. Have people actually worked with NoSQL databases before? Any kind, not just CouchDB or Cloudant. Please let me know in the chat if you have worked with any sort of NoSQL database, and there are lots, I know. This is what Cloudant looks like on IBM Cloud. So you can see I have different kinds of databases here. And of course, the CATS database apparently is mandatory if you're using any sort of cloud-based database service. And how does it differ from MySQL then? Oh, Chuck, you've used Mongo? Yeah. So let me know what you think after this webinar, what you think of Cloudant. Firebase is another common one. Va, you have Cloudant CouchDB, cool. Okay, you can also chime in with your impressions and your learnings from CouchDB perhaps here. Help me answer some questions. So this is what I'm trying to compare MySQL with Cloudant or CouchDB. So in this case, or a NoSQL database in general. So in this case, you have your person class, your address class. It's very typical, right? Maybe you're storing information about your user, and then you have some sort of join table that links every person to the address. Now, if I were to convert this to a NoSQL database, I say NoSQL, but in this case, it's more the JSON version of NoSQL database. Then all of these tables kind of get combined into one. So as you can see here, I still have my information about the person, my username, first name, last name, email, gender, etc. And then my address it's now a child of this person object, so to speak, right? So address is a property inside my person object, and then it has the subproperties of city, state, country, and postal code. And so I no longer need to maintain this additional join table because everything resides in one place. Now there are pros and cons to that. The one thing I do like about having everything at one place is the readability becomes a lot easier, for me at least. It's like the whole argument between keeping CSS and JavaScript separate versus what React does, where everything is together. And maybe that helps with kind of getting a good understanding of what's going on, just looking at a component itself. But like I said, that's not the only NoSQL database in this whole wide world. We have other kinds, right? So you have the key value pairs and the column stores and et cetera, et cetera. So you can see here, actually, I looked at it a while ago. There's a website called NoSQLdatabase.org that lists all sorts of NoSQL databases. And last I checked, there were more than 255 NoSQL databases. Now they are categorized into different types, right? Depending on how they, not only how they store, but what format or what the concept is in storing these different values that we do want to store data, right? So as you can see here, document store CouchDB is listed as one of them. That's what we are focusing on today. In CouchDB, this is what a record looks like. It's actually called a document. So a document will have some sort of ID, and then generally it has some sort of underscore rev ID. And the revision ID is used to manage conflicts, and the ID happens to be the primary key of the document. Okay, so those are the two pieces of information that you need when you are looking for a document, so doing any kind of query, when you're deleting a document, updating a document, you generally need to know the ID and the revision ID. But hopefully nothing new so far. This should be easy to understand. So in this case, that was one document, and a collection of documents then makes up a database. So in this case, I've got a 14,000 of the documents I showed on the previous page with the user first name, last name, email, etc. Okay, and each of them have their own IDs and revision IDs, also called the metadata for that document. Okay, before I go to the next one, has everybody signed up for IBM Cloud? Can you please say yes or +1? I'm really hoping you actually sign up, and we can do some, it's not really coding together, but we can actually look into Cloudant by using your own accounts today. So can somebody please chime in, reply to my question? Have you signed up? If not, why not? If yes, I'm happy for you. I know it's Friday today, and I'm actually happy you're spending your time with me on a Friday. Don't even know if it's morning or afternoon or evening for you. Maybe it's evening for some of you. Tough crowd today, nobody replies. I guess that's okay. The show must go on. All right. So once you do sign up for IBM Cloud and you log in, you'll come to a page like this, and this is your dashboard. Okay, so this is essentially just showing what resources you've used in the past, if there are any outages, system maintenance, notifications, etc., right? So that's okay. The one thing I do want to show you is catalog. So if you are following along today, go to catalog and create a Cloudant resource or a service. So there are a number of ways to do it. You can go to services, then you can go look at databases, and Cloudant shows up as the first database you can create. The other way to do this would be go right on top and type in Cloudant, no matter where you are on IBM Cloud. And then you can, as you can see, I've already created one called Cloudant Upkar, but you can create a new one. So click on that Cloudant thing. By the way, this is also free to use today, or there's a free tier you can use. So again, it should not ask you for any credit card information. So click on the free tier, which is, it's called Light down here. And you can pick the region closest to you. For me, happens to be Dallas. I'll pick that. And the one thing, if you are following today and if you're doing the exercises today, the one thing I want you to be careful of is please choose IAM and legacy credentials. Now we can get into a whole hour session on what these things are and how they differ. But essentially, with Cloudant at least, you need to have the legacy credentials in order to use the Postman to use Postman the way I'm going to use it today and show you today. So that's why please pick this one. If I was building a web app or something else where I'm not doing a lot of curl stuff, I'll probably go with, or where I'm not showing you the stuff I'm showing you, I would recommend sticking with IAM. That's the new version of authentication. But for today, let's pick IAM and legacy credentials. Okay, and then that's it. Then you can click on create. If you want to change the name to something which is more readable to you or makes more sense to you, you can do that here. But otherwise, we're good to go. So pick light, and then do the IAM and legacy credential and click on create. Okay, so once you do that, it takes a couple of minutes to provision the service, but it should take you to the resources page. So if I go to my resources page here, you'll see under services, I now have something called Cloudant Upkar. Well, I created this before, but you should see something here too. You see, I actually have a lot of other services. So, of course, we have on IBM Cloud, we have our own CI/CD tool chains, have that deployed here. Plus, I have a whole bunch of machine learning stuff going on here, right? The text-to-speech, visual recognition service. The Watson Assistant service is to build chatbots, and I have something called Watson Studio. That's our platform to do everything machine learning, deep learning. Node-RED is pretty cool, maybe topic for another webinar. But for now, we'll focus on Cloudant. So once you create that, and let me know how everybody's doing. Is anybody creating this? Do you have any problems? Did you run into anything? Were you able to create it successfully? And are you able to come see this page? So if you are on this page, we'll use a couple of things here. So we'll use, ooh, this is interesting. What happened to my credentials? That is interesting. Okay, so if you see this, I'm going to create a new credential, which we'll use with Postman. So say, I'm just going to pick the default and say add. That should give me a JSON of new credential. I know I'm sharing my API key and everything else on this webinar, but I'll remove this later. Okay, Daniel, not quite there yet. Can you go over settings to choose again? Absolutely. So let's go back. So Cloudant, and I will pick Cloudant from catalog results. So I'm guessing you mean these settings. So in here, pick the area closest to you. I pick Dallas. You can pick whichever you like. Rename the service if you want to. And then this is where I'm saying pick IAM and legacy credentials, just the way I have Postman set up today. Okay, and then pick light. That's all. So just make sure you pick IAM and legacy credentials. The rest of the stuff is, you just want to pick the free stuff, not the one you're paying for. Okay, and once you do that, again, it'll take you to your resources page, and inside resources, you'll see. So for me, it says active. For you, it might say provisioning or in progress or provision in progress or something like that. And then just refresh the page after a couple of minutes, and it should be done. You shouldn't even have to refresh, but I don't know. I like to do that. Okay, and then it should bring you to a page like this, and this is where you go to service credentials, and you can see. Well, this might be empty. If it's empty, you say create a new credential, and it'll give you your API key and other things you might need as JSON on this page. Okay, so Daniel, does that help? Great, thumbs up. Okay, so the next thing I want to, so I'll give you a little bit more time to get to this spot. And while you're doing that, I will show you some other cool stuff about CouchDB. So one thing I really like about CouchDB/IBM Cloudant is that, other databases might be made for the web, but CouchDB is made off the web, which is really cool. So what I mean by that is everything that you can do in the UI on CouchDB, you can do using HTTP, standard HTTP commands or requests in CouchDB. So if you want to create a database, if you want to query a database, you want to delete a record, you want to add a new document /record, What else? You want to see what kind of conflicts there are. You want to create a view. You want to create a new index. Whatever you want to do, you can do it using simple HTTP endpoints. And that's very powerful, right? Not only do we understand as web developers, we hopefully understand how HTTP works. We understand how to make a request. And so it makes it really easy to work with CouchDB. Also, things that come with HTTP, for example, caching, you get some of that for free. If, for example, if you're doing querying and things like that. That being said, there are also SDKs that you can use. So there's an SDK for Node, there's an SDK for Python, et cetera, et cetera. So you can use those SDKs in your programs to perform actions on CouchDB. But HTTP, but by default, it works very well with HTTP. So for example, if I were to send a GET request to _all_DB's endpoint on my database, my CouchDB database, it'll give me back all of my databases. So in this case, you see all the databases come back. If I do a GET on a database name, I get more information about that database, right? So like the file size of the database, and then the number of records as well, just not showing here. So again, if I send a delete request for the database name, it'll delete it. If I send a put request, it'll create a new database. Those are database level operations. And then you have document level operations. So if I were to send a GET request on a database /all docs, it gives me all the documents in JSON format, with it's a metadata, so how many rows there are. I can also, pass in an offset, so it won't start from 0, it'll start from a certain offset. So things like that, like offset, skipping records. There's also one like start and end. All of those things work with most of the querying commands in CouchDB, and I'll show you some examples in a bit. So in this case, I'm actually, what else am I doing? Oh, I see. So in this case, I'm asking for a certain document. So if I'm going into the database, I'm saying, give me an ID, or get me this document, get me the document with this ID, then it gets me that. I can also ask for a certain revision number. So in this first case, you see the revision ID is 2-. In the second case, it's 3-. So, I'm asking for a certain revision ID versus get me the latest. Okay, let's try it out. So hopefully everybody's got an account created and we are good to go. The next couple of screenshots just tell you how to set up Postman, but I'm going to show you anyways, so we don't have to go through the slides. So once you're here, again, you have created a Cloudant service on IBM Cloud. You have created your service credentials. The next step would be to download the Postman collections, right? So instead of doing all this from scratch, we're going to use a built-in collection. So if I go back to my CouchDB intro Git repo, under the data section, there is something called, excuse me, CouchDB Postman collection, not the local host, but the Postman collection. And if it's just a JSON file, actually, let me open it. So this is how it looks like, right? So it defines the different operations we're going to do. It uses these variables called username, password, host. So this is where you fill up your details from credentials. And let me show you how to do that. So I have Postman open already. And let's get rid of all of this. Let's start from scratch. So close all tabs. It's going to get me into trouble. Don't save, don't save, don't save. Let's do that. I'm pretty sure we can recreate it. Okay, so this is my brand new Postman. Not much has been done, but I do have some collections imported here, right? So again, the slides explain how to do this, but it's really simple. You see the import button on the top left. You can click on that import button, and then actually you can give it a link. So I can give it this link. So if I go to raw, this should work. So if I give that JSON link here, continue, then it's going to name it CouchDB, which I already have. So it's probably going to name it CouchDB copy or something. Yeah, so I can import as copy, which is fine. So import it, and you'll see here is my CouchDB copy, right? So this one just came in CouchDB copy. Excuse me, let's work with that. So again, if you have Postman open, click on the import button on top, and then you can directly import this JSON file. For you, it'll probably just name it CouchDB. I have it as copy. The next thing we want to do is fill in those pieces of variables that it'll use, right? So the username, password, host, etc. So in Postman, how that works is you can click on the 3 dots, and you can go to edit. Again, if I'm going a little faster, this was not supposed to be a workshop session. This is more of a, just show and tell kind of event. All the steps are documented. Plus also, if people are interested, we can do this and a little bit more as a full-blown workshop. So let Brian know that you're interested at Certified Fresh events, and we can definitely do that. Or let me know on Twitter. Okay, so if you click on edit on the collection, you can go to this thing called variables, and this is where I want you to fill out your credentials from the Cloudant service. So if I go back to my Cloudant details, right? So remember this, we can go get the API, no, not API key. We can go get the URL, and oh, it doesn't need the URL. What do we need? Username. Let's go to username. Okay, grab the username and put it into, I put it in both initial and current. Okay, password, we can grab the password. Everybody close your eyes. I can put it into the password. And then for host, this is our host. You can grab that, put it into host. You see what I'm doing? Keeping it real easy. And then for database name, let's call it users. Okay, that's the data we're going to work with, users. Okay, so everything's updated, or everything's saved. Let's update it. Okay, so let's see what this collection has. So you see CouchDB copy. I'm working with databases, I'm working with documents, I'm working with something called query map reduce. For databases themselves, if I click on the database list request, you can see it's making a request to HTTPS username, which I've already filled in, my password, at that host, and it's making a request to this endpoint called _all_DBs. If you remember from the slide, this simply lists all the databases in my service. So if I were to send this, and fingers crossed, yay, came back with nothing, right? Because we just created the service. There is no database in there. It's fine. The next thing creates a database. So again, I'm sending a put request to those endpoints with /database name. In our case, it's users. So I'll send that. It came back with an OK, great, 201 response. So I love how CouchDB really follows the HTTP protocols. And so for me, it's also a learning experience to see how what kind of responses they send back with certain operations versus how I do it if I were building an endpoint, a REST endpoint. Okay, so let's go back to the list and click on this again. And now you see I have one database called users, which I just created. And again, so remember we did a put request. If we do a get request to the same endpoint, it'll show me the details about this database. And there's not much going on right now. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is insert a whole bunch of documents to this database. Now, in order to do this, I'm using this endpoint called bulk docs. Okay, again, I'm just using curl because it's easy to show it to you here, or Postman, but all of this is possible with either Node SDK or Java or Python libraries. So no, you don't have to use, like when you're building a real application, you don't have to use curl. That would be horrible. So if I go back to my GitHub, you'll see under data, there's another file called, I think it's called person.json. This file has, I think, 1,000 different objects, each one representing a person. So you can see here, this is a person, and this is a person, and this is a person. I generated this using Mockaroo, which is, they have a free plan. I was able to generate 1,000 people with their cities and gender and information like that. So this is all generated data. So I have this downloaded on my laptop. So we'll pass this we'll pass this person.json file into this bulk docs endpoint in order to create our documents in this database named users. In order to do so, we will send a binary file in the body of this post request. And I'm going to go and select this person.json as my file. Okay, so person.json, I'm sending a post request, send, and magic. And what it's saying, it comes back with an ID and revision number for each one of those records. And with the status of OK, hopefully they're all OK. You can go read the docs to see what other values might come back. All right, so hopefully it's created something for me, right? So how do I look if it's created something for me? By the way, the last operation here is database delete, which I'm not going to do because I just created it. So instead, let's go look at document read all. So here, my endpoint is again all docs, but you see here I'm saying limited to 10 database or 10 documents. Let's take that out. Let's get them all back and say send. So now it's created 1,000 documents for me. It's not coming back with the document itself, but the metadata you see here. It doesn't have any of the person information. So in order to do that, I think it's include docs, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Yes, so if I say include docs, now you see it has the individual document come back to you. So wasn't that easy? So we just created a database, then we got back our 1,000 documents. I have a couple of other examples here. In order to create a document, you can send a post to the database name, and then in the body, you can actually define a new person here, right? So let me add me in. So if I were to add my name, okay, first name. Apparently the K on my laptop doesn't work. Upkar.com, whatever. I'm 36 and I live in San Francisco, in California, and country. Oops, California has to be in quotes. Okay, so I'm going to pass this data in. Postal code 94211. It's not my postal code. Okay, so I put this in the body, and I'm sending a post request to my DB name. That should create a document. So let's hit send and see what comes back. Great, it came back with an ID and a revision ID. Now, just to make sure it was actually created, I'm going to copy the ID and put it under document read. So document read, you send the same GET request to the database, but you put an ID at the end in the URL. So if I send that, you'll see this is what I just created, and it came back, and I was able to read it, right? In order to update, I want to show you update because that's how the revisions are used. So if you see here, when I just got this database or this document back, I have an ID and I have a revision ID. Let's say I want to change my username from Upkar Litter to just Upkar. So in order to do that, I need to pass it what revision I want to change, because this is how they work with conflicts, right? So because somebody else might have changed the database already or the document already, and then to reduce conflicts, I need to first get the latest revision ID before I can update it. So this is the latest revision ID, I know that, and then I can now send an update request. I can send an update request to this ID, right? So my ID now is this, and I'm saying update this revision, which I know is the latest revision. And in the body, then I can pass in a different, in this case, I'm passing in a different first name. So, well, wait, what was the other thing? Username. So let's change the username. Let's change the username to Upkar1234. Okay, so if I were to send this now, it came back with an OK, but you also see it gave me a new revision ID. So that's how revision numbers change. As you keep making changes, your documents keep on getting new revision IDs. If I were to read that document again, so I'm reading the same ID. Oh, I see what it did. So my bad. So it just updated the whole document with that username. So generally how you would do this is you would go get the document from Cloudant, create an object in whatever language you're using, update the fields you want to update, or maybe delete the fields or add new fields. And by field, I mean these properties, and then send it back. So whatever was there, it remains the same, and only the information you update is updated. The other thing to realize about Cloudant or CouchDB is stuff doesn't get deleted, stuff gets marked for deletion. So immutability is very important in CouchDB. So when I'm updating things or when I'm deleting things, it gets marked for deletion, but doesn't go away. Eventually it goes away. When I am updating things, it creates a new record with my updates or new document with my updates. That document has the new revision ID. So if I were to ask, for all the revision IDs, I would actually see my previous updates as well. It's not meant to be a version control system. Some people try and use it that way. So it's not, don't do that, but just remember, to enable ease of conflict resolution, they've made it so that immutability is by default what they do. Okay. Again, document delete. So let's actually delete that document I just created. So this is the ID. So let me grab that and I'll put it in delete. So here's my ID I want to delete. And again, as with update, I have to actually give it the exact revision number I want to delete. So delete this revision number and send it. So it got deleted. And if I go now try and read that document, it's going to come back with a 404 object not found, right? And the reason is because it was deleted. If I were to look for a completely random ID, the reason changes to missing, right? So I love how intuitive they make it. You're not like, sometimes errors come back and you're like, oh my God, C234015. I have no idea what that means, and then you go Google it. In this case, at least the errors are easy to read. And by errors, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, right? This was expected. Okay. Anybody have any problems trying this out? Were you able to import collections in Postman? Again, I know I'm going fast today because we don't have enough time, but hopefully you're getting some value out of this. Okay, let's move on. Again, I want to show you everything I know about Apache CouchDB today. Okay, so let's keep going. The other thing I want to show you is how to query stuff. So here's how you find things on CouchDB or in CouchDB, right? So like I said, when you start throwing stuff into CouchDB, you get this ID _ID back, and that's your primary key. And that's an index that's already been created for you. So you can certainly look by, you can do document lookup by index, right? If I send something to all docs, again, that primary index is used to return all the documents to me. But there's also this concept of secondary index, which means I want to look by something other than _ID. And what they use for that is something called views. And under the hood, views use MapReduce. This concept called MapReduce. So let's look at how that looks or what that means. So I'm going to go back to, by the way, I haven't actually shown you Cloudant yet, right? All of the commands I've done so far are purely curl-based commands in Postman that I could be doing against a local CouchDB. But just to show you, I actually created something on the cloud. Let's launch this thing called Launch Dashboard in my Cloudant service. And it's asking me to sign in again. And once I'm in, you'll see our database that we just created will show up here. That's our database, 1,000 records, because remember, I inserted myself and removed myself. If I were to open this database, you'll see in the table format, I actually can see the ID and all of the different values from attributes, right? So this is stuff we just created. And then if I go to JSON, I can see it in a different format. So maybe this is easier to read for some people. Anyways, our database is here, created using curl. And now let's see how we can do some create a view. So this is how you create a view to use secondary indices. And so you say design documents. By the way, design everything in Cloudant is a design document. They're special to Cloudant. And one kind of design document is a view. So if I go to create a new view, it brings me to this page, right? So this is where there's a little bit of coding here. But what's happening here is you have to define your map function and then your reduce function. As I said before, your view is a combination of map and reduce. And all that map is doing is mapping. That might mean filtering. That might mean, generally doesn't mean transformation, but mapping is just, you're going through every document and you're trying to see if it matches something. So in this case, my query in Postman, if I go back to Postman, query map reduce, the first thing I want to do is get all documents by country, or get a certain country, right? So remember here in our, well, it's not here, but remember in, well, let's go back. Okay, I'll open this. Remember here, every person belongs to a country. So I have Philippines here. It's still trying to increase. Okay, so I have different countries for every person, right? So I want to get only people from a certain country. I'm going to create a view, which will use this country thing as an index. Behind the scenes, it's creating a country index. And all I have to do is to create a view. I want to create a new view or a new design document. I want to, I think I called it users. Okay, so I want this design document to live in this thing called users, okay, because my database is user. So I want all the views that pertain to user to sit under users group. And then in the index name, this is where what my view should be called. So I'm calling my view country. Okay, so I'm creating this design document called country under the users group. And this map function, for every document in the database, I only want to emit the document, or I want to emit not the ID, but the country in this case. Okay, so I'm taking my whole document and just emitting the country back. And then in here, instead of one, I'll say doc. So this is my key value pair, right? So I'm saying, go through every document in my database, give me the country as the key and the whole document as the value. I'm not going to do any reduce at this time, and I'll just say create document and build index. So view saved, it actually not only saved the view, but it actually ran the view. So in this case, you see all this came back when the view was run, and you can see the key is my country, and then value is my document itself. And plus it's coming back with the document too. Okay. How do I use this now? So now if I want to search by a certain country, I can do a couple of things. So you see I'm making the same request. This first part never changes, right? So username, password, host, DB name. Again, this is because I'm using the legacy username, password credential in IBM Cloud. If I was using IAM, this call would look different. Plus, if I were using one of the SDKs, again, this call would look a little bit different. But I'm saying, hey, go to the _design users design document or group, and then look at the view called country. And I'm going to send a special thing called keys. And keys is simply saying, get me all the people from Albania. And if I were to send this request, because my view is already created, right? My view is already created. Let's see. See, key is Albania. This person is from Albania. This other person's also from Albania, right? So these are all people that have Albania in their country. So that's how, and it only came back with a certain number. So that's what it came, or that's how you do. One way of doing query is by using MapReduce, or by using views which uses MapReduce under the hood. Now, how does the reduce part come in? Let's say I want to see people from Albania, but I want to see how many there are, not the actual list of people. So in that case, I have to change my view or create a new one. So in this case, I'll just change this. and I have to use a reduce. So I'm going to say count. Okay, so just count the number that comes back. The count works on the second value of emit. So in this case, I have to change, this, it doesn't know how to count. Well, count might still work with doc. Let's give this a try, actually. So I haven't changed my mapping function. That's still the same. I'm saying key it off of country. And my reduce, I'm saying just count the number of results that come back. Let's go back to Postman. And in this case, again, this looks the same. I'm saying go to the design users, go to the view called country. In this case, I'm saying, by the way, reduce it, right? Let's run this to see if this works. Oh, it did come back. Let me change this. Okay, so group has to be true, okay. All right, so in this case, you can see, instead of returning the list of people from Albania, it's returning me the total number of people from Albania, right? And this is where if I actually do not pass it a key and click on send, you can see it's returning to me group by country, all number of people, right? Which is kind of cool. Now I can start doing ascending order, descending order. I can do more filtration, maybe only countries starting with a B. If I were to do something like that, I would go back to my view, edit the view, and in this function right here, right? So I'll say if doc.country. Again, I'm not doing any error checking here, but I would say, this is like, is that correct JavaScript for doing that? Yeah, right. So this is all countries that start with B. So you see how simple that was to create a view. Now in web applications, usually your queries, they're sort of predefined. You're either searching by a certain key. Value might change. That's okay, but you're either searching by a certain key or a pair of keys or a set of keys. And essentially, you would have these views pre-created that behind the scenes create some sort of index, so your search becomes really, really fast. I know we only have 1,000 documents here. It's not that big of a database, but imagine having millions. You still want that search to come back very fast. Okay, so the rest of the queries here do something very similar, but on different different indices, right? So this one's interesting. It's returning age by country. So in order to do this, I'm doing two groupings. I'm doing first by age, then by country. In order to do that, let's go back and change this again. And let's remove this because I want all the countries. And I can now emit two different keys. So I can say, hey, get me by country and by age. Instead of sending the doc back, I'll just send the value 1. So it's easy for me to do a sum. Save that. Let's go back to my view and actually run this. So actually my view here is called age by country. So let's rename this age by country. Now, if I'm renaming this, you have to realize the previous ones stopped working, which that's okay. Just want this one to work. Okay, so now you can see it's listing by country and how many people are age by country. So there's one person age 30 from Afghanistan. There's one person age 32 from Afghanistan. So maybe not too useful in our case. What might be useful is if I switch around the age and country variables. So let's do this. And let's make this call again. Aha. So now it's saying the age 24 only appears in Belarus. If I go down, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's all fake data, so I guess it's not that interesting. I'm trying to look. So like, for example, in this case, 25 is in Chad and China. So I could do a little bit better grouping here. As you can see, I can probably go age and then all the countries, but for now, I'm going to leave it like this. And then I'm showing, or there's a few more queries you can try on your own to create views. But this is one way to look, right? So one way to search with using secondary indices is by doing this MapReduce concept or view concept. The other thing is you can actually do a text search, like a full-blown text search, and under the scenes, it's under the hood, it's using Lucene as the search engine. Now, of course, you have to be a little careful on how you set it up because it could take potentially take longer, but the capability is there. It also has really nice geospatial index, so you can actually, if your data is in form of lat and long, you can tell it to, you can pass queries like, give me all the shops within the 5-mile radius from this location or something like that. So it's easy. It understands. It has a special understanding of geospatial data. It's not simply just text stored in my columns. And finally, there's something called Cloudant query, also called Mango query, and it was inspired by the query in MongoDB. So that's where the name comes from. And in order to use that, we can go back to our database, and this query thing up here will will show you how to use this. So this is how you write a query like that. So you pass in a selector. So I'm saying my selector is ID, but only give me all the IDs that are greater than 0. Give me the ID back and the revision ID back from whatever comes back, and sort it by this. So for example, I could say, give me only people above 35, and I want to see their first name, and perhaps I want to see the country they belong to. And sure, sort it by age ascending. And if I were to run this query, oops. Okay, I'm actually glad this happened. So to run your Mango queries, you need to create an index. So let me copy this, and I'll come back to this in a second. But if I go to manage index, I can create, so there's one created for us. This is the underscore ID, which is, I said, it's the primary key. That index is there. That Cloudant did that for us. I want to create a new index, and I want to create an index on my field called age. So let's do that. So I'm saying, call it age JSON index, take all of the age fields and create an index out of that. So, okay, it's created this age index. Now that I have my index, I can go back to my query and run it again. Ooh, no documents found. Let's see, what did I do here? Selector age greater than 35. Give me all of this. I have to look into why this is not working. Oh, this, wait, no, age is there. Where is age? Oh, let me go to the query. Let me take this part out. I don't think that makes a difference. All right, I'll go back and see why this is not working. But if this was a longer session, we could have sat here and debugged it. But for now, I guess the point I want you to take away from this is the Cloudant query is another way. It again uses views under the hood, but you don't have to go and create a view. You can use Cloudant query. So these are the different ways to query Cloudant. So we looked at how do you create a database. First we looked at, or we saw Cloudant works very well with HTTP. It's sort of built up by default, by design to work with that, very well with that. And then secondly, you can also create indices and views and maps and joins and reduce using the HTTP commands as well, or using the UI. So we used the UI for some of that, but we could have also sent in post requests to actually create our view or design document, okay? All right, let me move on. So the couple of slides, these couple of slides tell you exactly what I showed you, right? So how do you use MapReduce? What does mapping mean? What does reducing means? And then this is the part I enjoy a lot, is how replication works. So Cloudant is what we call eventually consistent database, right? So replication is very strong thing in, or it's a big pro for Cloudant/CouchDB. And in order to do so, it's really easy. Actually, before I do that, I think I have it running locally as well. So localhost 5984. 5984. Let's see if that's working. Yep, it's working. So then I can go _utils. So this is Cloudant working locally. Okay, this is, I'm running a, if I actually go here, Docker, and if I grep for CouchDB, you can see I have CouchDB right here running locally as a Docker container. And it has this users database, which I'm going to remove. Okay, so now because this is localhost, yesterday I was actually running ng, this one here, and this gives me a public URL that does some port forwarding. So I can now hit this, right? I can now hit this from a public site, and it should take me to, _utils should take me to the same spot. So this should open up my my database. It's taking a second, but this brings me back to my local. By using this tool, now I can start replicating. So this is where it gets kind of cool. So if I go back to Cloudant and say replicate, create a new replication, my source is my local database, and I want to replicate the users database, and I want to use a username and password, which I'll grab from here, going back to my service credentials. Again, I understand I'm going a little fast, but we'll ask if we can do a workshop, and I'll go a little bit slower. But today the goal is just to show you the different cool things, sort of whet your appetite, so to speak. So I put in my username, password, and my target is an existing remote or new remote database. This is where I can put in this address, and authentication is Cloudant username, and I think this is just admin password for my local. Is that going to work? Invalid target database. Yeah, I think I have to give this another name. So it's going to create a users database locally, which you can see right now there's no users database locally in my local CouchDB. And if I say start replication, hopefully it's doing something. But that's cool. The users just showed up. And if you look at the number of docs, it's going up one at a time. Now, again, a lot of this is like because I'm doing port forwarding and things like that. But now my 1,000 records from my remote are coming into my local CouchDB database. If I were to go in, see, this is all of this stuff. But not only that, it also copies my design documents. So if you see, this is what we created on IBM Cloud, and now this is available for me to use locally as well, right? So I can edit this. This is stuff we were working on before. All right, so that's how replication works. Very, very, very powerful feature in Cloudant / CouchDB. And right, so again, I told you HTTP is not the only option. You can use some of these other SDKs. And then finally, to recap, right? So we looked at the database itself. It's schema free, as you can imagine. You can put in whatever you like. But when querying stuff and other things, you can put some constraints around that. Documents are immutable, so nothing is deleted. It's marked for deletion, and not everything is sort of appended, right? So when I update a document, it keeps the old revision, creates a new one. And each document is JSON. We saw that. We talked a lot about HTTP today and how Cloudant is really, really built with HTTP and web in mind. Replication was pretty easy. You saw I was able to replicate my remote database to my local database, and you can see it's got all these records here, right? So it's got the 1,000 records plus the design document that came in from remote. And then, yeah, we talked about map reduce. It's pre-computed. The indices are built for you beforehand, so the query actually is very, very fast. Yeah, and the last thing, I really like this. When you start CouchDB locally, it says Apache CouchDB has started, time to relax. And that sort of sentiment you'll see throughout when you're using CouchDB / Cloudant is, it's actually pretty chill. It's easy to use. With that, I think I'm 2 minutes over. I am not sure how many people stayed, how many people left, but if you did stay, back and listen to the whole thing, thank you very much. Again, I know Fridays are, I guess Fridays could be for learning, so I'm glad you're here. And again, please let me know on Twitter if you like this. Of course, we spend a lot of time preparing for meetups like these, and it's really encouraging and good to know if people value the content. Also, it's good to know what needs to change. So if I'm sure some comments will be go slower next time, or do a longer workshop, which I'm totally in for. Also, my email's here, so if you want to email me about anything. Thank you, Daniel. All right, with that, I think we can end the broadcast. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And until next time.
Thanks for watching.